This is session 2. You all registered for it because you got the email to know how to get in because you're here, so I don't have to talk about it.
Nice.
We're here going to be talking about the next generation of endpoints today. We have whoever has not received a ticket to win one of the 2 cool Voyager 8200 UC headsets, let us know because we're not going to take them home today. We'd rather give them away and let you guys take them home. We're going to do this sequence today. My friend and colleague Sam Kennedy is going to give the presentation this afternoon. We're not using microphones because we don't need it in this room, and we're already automatically recording. So we don't need to pass around any microphones, but if you do have questions and if you do want to speak up, like I said this morning, please stay engaged. Please do that. When you have a question, tell us where you're from so people understand who's talking and what they're saying. We're going to go through the presentation. We're going to have a panel discussion with, again, 3 terrific end users that use some of the equipment that we're talking about today. And then right after that, if you notice on your badge, you have a colored dot. The colored dot represents one of the tour groups. So if you would like to take a tour of this facility and see what's going on with the various pieces of equipment, I will announce who the tour leaders are. It's on that little slip of paper over there, and I'll point to people so that this way not everybody's in the same room at the same time. When the tours are over, you come back out here. We're going to have the raffle and give away the headsets. You'll have one last shot at getting some tickets before we do that. So without any further ado, does anybody have any questions about the housekeeping or anything else? For those of you that have signed up for it, tomorrow morning we're meeting at the Google facility. And Aaron will be giving the presentation around the UC battles that are going on today. Any other questions or comments? Excellent. Sam?
Okay, right on.
All yours.
Thank you. So hello everyone. Again, my name is Sam Kennedy. I am the Chief Product Evangelist for Poly. So David asked me to do a little discussion here on Not Your Father's Endpoints. Just as a reminder, as David mentioned, I will be giving away 2 Voyager 8200s. Again, anyone who's not familiar with these, I would say someone who now recently works for a headset manufacturer, those would be my particular favorite. So I quite like those 8200s. So they're nice surprise. They're cool. So who am I? So again, Sam Kennedy. My title is Chief Product Evangelist. I'm also a Senior Director in Global Product Management. What that means is I spend most of my time, actually I work for the business unit, so I'm a part of the team that's working on our products, but what I do is I'm the big loud mouth in the business unit. So I travel around the world talking to our key customers and partners about our technology roadmap, our strategy. I do a lot of NDA presentations. So I have a very good understanding as to where Polycom has been and where Polycom's going. I also spend a lot of time with customers, so I have a really good take on what's going on within the industry. And so, and again, hopefully at this point everyone is pretty familiar with Poly, and Poly is the coming together of Polycom and Plantronics, the leader in headsets, leader in video. We're together, and ultimately I think what Poly is we're devices.
Your experience over, Sam.
I know.
Everyone from now on is a bucket.
Everyone, yeah, I know. It's all good. I will say Polycom a lot still. It's all good. I'm not ashamed of it. But again, we think what we deliver is we deliver devices for all the different ecosystems from a UC perspective, and I think is it's been a big shift for us over the last few years. But I think we're really starting to realize part of our strategy, and so. I'm very much looking forward to this since David asked me, and I think it gave me an opportunity to think a little differently from what I do on a daily basis, right? As I said, I spend most of my time, I don't even have to think about what I'm doing at this point. I mean, when I have to do a customer presentation or to talk to customers, I mean, I can do it in my sleep at this point. I know what we're doing, I know where we're going. But David actually, helped me maybe pull myself back a little bit and look at the industry as a whole and strategy as a whole. And so, when David said, okay, I want you to do a discussion on Not Your Father's Endpoints, I'm like, okay, well, what does he mean by that? So my first thought was, is David talking to me about me as a father? And is it about my kids? And so I have 2 daughters, Amber and Jessica, and I think any opportunity that I could have to be able to show my kids on a slide for work, I was like, yes, I am completely taking that. But when I think about what's important to my kids on their devices, well, it's all about the different apps. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I mean, my daughter doesn't watch, Amber, I don't think she's ever watched a television show. She just watches YouTube and Snapchat. And, you know, I went and I was like, okay, what are the biggest apps that I think that they use? And I didn't even think about it, right? Like, every one of those apps can do video, right? It's just inherently already it's already ingrained in their heads. But again, I don't think David was actually asking me to talk about my daughters, but it's literally where my head went when I started. So then I said, okay, it's not my father's endpoints. Maybe it was about me when I first got into the industry. I've been doing this for 20 years. When I started in the industry, I started a really small startup that went out of business, and then I went to ViewTech, which merged with Allcom, became Wire One, became BT Conferencing. And then I went to a I did a little work for Tamberg, was SE for VCon. I was a customer at Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then I've been here at Poly for 15 years, Polycom and Poly for 15 years. So, you know, where was I when I first got into the industry? Well, the big technologies that were big then was H320, which ISDN would be the big part of H320. We saw some interoperability. The big players being PictureTel, VTEL. Obviously, there were some other players. Then the industry moved to SIP and 323. So more standards, more interop. Obviously, Polycom and Tamberg were the big vendors there. But we've seen a big shift almost from that. What was happening in the past with that SIP 323 and what happened? Well. Coming from Polycom, I was very familiar with what was going on in the industry, and we were selling lots of infrastructure, on-prem MCUs and big on-prem iron, and you know that was a means to an end, and it solved a lot of problems. But customers demanded scale. First of all, demanded unified communications. Then they demanded scale. You demanded lower cost. It wasn't millions of dollars to enable everyone within my organization. Quality, the move to the cloud. I'm not putting a server in my network. A big drive around the desktop. We see a lot of video has really been started at the desktop and then moved into the conference room, but that's also driving a need for consistency between desktop and the conference room. And there's a few seats up here, by the way, if anyone wants to risk sitting up front. And then, so these need from customers really drove the demand, or drove the need for cloud solutions. But what happened with this drive to the cloud solutions is much of it was focused on proprietary solutions. If we think of Zoom and WebEx and Teams, GoToMeeting, Chime, just a handful, right? I mean, this isn't the full market, but if you think of what they're really providing on the back end, every one of these is actually proprietary. Now, some of them have gateways. I mean, Cisco does a really nice job with gateways, SIP and 323. Zoom does a really nice job. Poly actually provides gateway services for Teams. GoToMeeting is built on, probably out of anyone up there, they're probably the most standards-based. But, you know, really what was happening as the needs for customers from a UC and video perspective, to make it easier, I guess, in order to deliver these, it was a big focus around proprietary solutions. Now, again, the drive for the, as there's this move to these new solutions, but really a lot of them, again, if I go back, a lot of this is focused at a desktop level. Well, obviously you need something for the conference room. And so what was the easiest way for the different vendors, the Unified Communications as a Service, UCaaS, or VAS, Video as a Service players, how did they get into the conference room quickly and inexpensively? Well, number one, use off-the-shelf technologies, right? Makes it much easier to develop and use, much quicker and cheaper to deliver a solution for the conference room. What about developers? Much easier to find people that build off of Windows than it is off of Android or some other proprietary or some other platform. And when you're trying to be fast and first, interoperability just took a second backseat, right? It wasn't what was going to drive more people using your platform. And so what this really drove is the rise of reference design, bring your own device, Windows and Mac-based solutions. Now this was good for quick and cheap to develop for the different UCaaS and video as a service players, but for customers, this was a real challenge, right? I know this is a challenge because I talk to customers every day, and I have been for the last few years about the path that the industry has been going down. I've just heard things around complicated. I've heard customers take hours to deploy a PC-based room, all sorts of cabling issues, all sorts of security risks, inconsistent quality of experience. Again, I imagine many of any of the end users have had some challenges with PC and Mac-based solutions. So I thought it would be interesting for all of you to actually take a look at how Wayne House does it, right? Wayne House being one of the industry leaders from an analyst perspective, and I have some good friends that work there. I wanted them to give me their definition of the different room systems. So they really divide it up into 4 different types of room systems. Number 1, they have multi-codec, so that's immersive telepresence. Then there's this traditional single codec, being a polycomer, the traditional single codec system, appliance-based, and it has maybe all-in-ones. Then there's the reference design. So again, this is really we're always talking about the general purpose PC or a NUC, and either the customer's putting it together or one of the vendors is saying, here's the package that we recommend for this type of solution. You can think of things like the ThinkSmart or the HP Slice. And then there is the 4th type would be just pure bring your own device, where I walk into the conference room with my PC and I plug in. And so this is how Wayne House has been defining, and I got this from them, I think they published this last year. So these are how they're looking at the different types of devices in the industry. So what I'm going to talk about, the end point of it taking me a long time to get here. I apologize for that, but I think it's important you understand, why. I think I'm answering why, right? How did we get here? And I think it's important. I think if you understand how we got here, I think you'll understand why when we're going to do something different, why it's really going to happen. I think it's going to. So I believe what's going to happen is they're going to be take the multi-codec out of it just for a moment, and we'll call that
Albatross.
Yeah, I'll talk about that afterwards. There's definitely ways to solve for that, but I don't want to get into that today. You can go in the NDA room and talk about that after. But when I think of the other 3, that there's going to be a combining of those 3 into a single path, and that's what I'm going to spend a lot of my time talking about here. Now, if I move away from the endpoints just for a second and talk about the workspaces themselves, because I don't believe it's my father's workspace or when I started in the industry. It's not. The workspace itself has evolved pretty significantly as well. And I know I was just talking to Mark, and I know Mark, I don't know where he is. There he's right there. I know he's going to talk about this on Wednesday, about some topics that I think it's just awesome stuff, because I think the way I think about it is I've always been looking at this from a technology bent, right? For 20 years, I've been coming at this from either reseller side or manufacturer side of video conferencing equipment in general. I've spent the last 5 years, I went to the largest commercial furniture trade show called NeoCon. It's in Chicago every year, the big steel case, and Herman Miller, and they all go. And why I love to go there is because many of the things that I'm talking about, they're going to say they've solved all the problems in the furniture industry, and I see that I think if I look into the future of coming together of facilities and tech and IT is just the sooner it happens, and the companies that are doing it quicker are going to have a more successful solution. I think Mark's going to talk about where the industry is going there, so I'm very much looking forward to that. But as we look at the evolution of the workspaces over the last few years, or over the last couple hundred years, right? We had the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s. I think one of the things that's always excited, I don't know why it seems to be impactful to me, maybe to you as well, it was the move to open spaces actually began with the Industrial Revolution, where offices started you had offices right where the factory floors were. Before that, it was really closed offices. And then Herman Miller, in I think it was 1967, invented the cubicle. And I think the workspace was pretty stagnant for number of decades there. But man, once we hit the 90s and the 2000s, things are moving fast, right? Cloud computing, telecommuting, a lot more people working from home. And then I think now, if you think of what's going on now, it's work from anywhere, right? It's the mobile workforce. So again, when I think about the workspaces themselves, imagine every end customer in here, and if you're not an end customer, you're talking to customers that are moving to that open workspace. I think we all know it, we hear about it every day, it's a hot thing. I don't think there's anything I could add that hasn't already been said, but obviously the need in an open workspace is driving the need for more huddle spaces. I still need to have private conversations, so I need somewhere to go, and that's really driving the need for huddle rooms. And that's, again, that's what we've been seeing over the last few years, obviously. But I think one of the things that is really shifting is the work culture itself is evolving. Work's happening everywhere, right? I'm at home, I'm in the car, I'm in the cafe. I was on the train this morning on a meeting. Again, we're a video-first company, as you can imagine. It's starting to get a little warmer out. As soon as it gets warm, there's a lot of people that come in over video, and they're in their backyard, right? You're in your conference room. I can't help but I was in Australia 2 weeks ago to present at Microsoft Ignite. And as I was going through the team, as preparing as to what I'm going to present, I was sharing with them the slides I was going to show in the kitchen. They had a nice tall table in the kitchen. There was literally a couch in their kitchen. And so what's happening is this shift around how people are working and where they're working. And there is this move towards, or the rise of informality inside of the office. I think one of the trends that I absolutely see when I go to NeoCon is more and more the workspace is looking more like your home. You think of lots more couches, the kitchen table is what I see, and you go to any of the big furniture manufacturers, that's what they're going to be showing off. It's more lighter colors, more hip, more cool, more relaxed. So there's this rise of informality. I love this particular image because I think it's just such a personification of what I believe is the room of their conference room of the future, right? They're just at maybe a kitchen table, someone had a beer, this person may be coding, these guys are having a discussion, even though it is not using a Plantronics headset, but still, right? I mean, so just this move to the way that people are working is evolving in a big way. And the expectations, I think a few years ago, where the consumerization of IT, I think a lot more, it was better to be at home. I think that's really shifting over the last 12, 18 months. And the expectations of the users are that the office is as good or better than being at home. When I go into the office, it better be great. One of the other shifts that I think is happening especially in the facilities side of the industry is workplace IoT. And that analytics are absolutely driving decisions that people are making for their conference rooms. So let's go back, and I'm going to kind of full circle this and back to what do my kids want in their device, right? If I think of all their apps, and again, another opportunity for me to show a picture of my kids, but I think when I think of my daughter and what does she want, well, she wants a single device that she can switch between apps as it makes sense, right? As I said, I wasn't even thinking about it when I first did this, but then I look at all these apps. Every one of these apps gives them the ability to record a video message, right? It's just, if they want to send something to their friends or to their followers or whatever, every one of these apps allows them to do this. And obviously, these are the ones that I know that they have, right? I'm sure there's like a whole bunch. They could extend it out, but that's, I'm not going to even ask. So let's think about all of us, right? Let's bring this back out of just my daughters and their consumer view, and let's think about all of us in the business world. Well, everyone in here has an iPhone, everyone in here has a mobile phone of some sort. I mean, what are the big key things that we want in our devices? Well, you want high quality, you want it to be highly reliable, low cost, you want to be able to use whatever platform you want, you need it to be scalable, manageable, easy to use, secure. I'm sure you could add a whole bunch of these, but all of us want a lot of the same things. Now, one thing that I think is, again, I was actually looked on my phone before I started this, and I had 9 different apps that I use to be able to communicate with people on my phone right now. That's just just what I'm using. I mean, everyone, you have a version of FaceTime or BlueJeans or WebEx or Zoom or Skype or Teams, WebEx, right? We all have multiple apps that we use all day long, right? You're switching in and out of them on a call per call basis based on the need, based on maybe my partner has it, maybe my customer has it, maybe that's what I use internally, maybe there's a specific feature that I like. But when you think of I have all of these apps, yet we're all on my personal device, I'm using, regardless of me switching between apps, I have the same speaker, same display, same microphone, same camera. So as we start to look at the conference room of the future, or the endpoint of the future, a lot of the similarities as to what's happened in the mobile world, right? A single device that has a shared speaker, has a shared microphone, a shared display. And so, let's talk about where we are today. As UCAS, Unified Communications as a Service, and Video as a Service providers are now reaching critical mass. Right now that video to the desktop is pretty pervasive. The customers are still demand. So let me say it again. So now that there's critical mass, I believe that the UCAS and VAS big players out there are running into an issue with customers. Customers still demand that they get all the same things from their UC vendor: UC, scale, quality, cloud, consistency. But customers want an alternative to off-the-shelf or generic compute. And so what this is driving is the UCAS and VAS vendors are now partnering with the hardware vendors, and I believe that this is the endpoint of the future. So the benefits of doing it this way, of bringing the best of an appliance and the best of a native app, what this provides, it gives you all of the benefits of a reference design, but plus it's easier to install, it's easier to manage. There's a lot less parts that could potentially break. Potentially is more secure. Potentially is lower TCO. You get a more consistent quality of experience, not running on off-the-shelf Windows that can reboot in the middle of the day because someone loaded a security patch. And so you get all the consistent, you get all of that, plus you get the consistent user experience and interface at the desktop. It brings the best of the UCAS and VAS with the best of the hardware vendors. And part of the value here is, again, I can't stress enough the user interface, the user experience in the interface. And you get the velocity of features. I don't want to pick on any one particular, right? Because but if I think of Zoom, right? Zoom is just moving super fast. And Teams, they're moving so fast, adding features. Every time you wake up in the morning, oh man, there's a new feature there. They're moving so fast. If we had to go back to the way it was done, for us years ago, where Microsoft or Zoom or Cisco or whoever would come out with a feature, they would give us the software. 6 months later, if we're lucky, we'd be able to add that feature into our products. And that's just not going to work at the speed that the industry wants us to. So by delivering, bringing the best of UCAS and VAS together with the best of the hardware vendors, I think is the way of the future. This strategy also starts to allow some levels of interoperability, in that we're going towards this mobile telephony, just like my kids and just like I'm able to switch between apps on my phone. This path of having native apps running on an appliance or running on Android allows us potentially to have different personas at the endpoint level. So you can think of the endpoint of the future as a huge smartphone, right? Maybe I know I'm overly simplifying it, but in some ways I'm not, right? That is the path forward. And the strategy, again, now not only does it allow all those great things of a native device, of the native ecosystem or the native UCAS and VAS and an appliance, plus it starts to deliver on what solve some interoperability challenge that have been plaguing the industry. So if I think about, okay, not your father's endpoint, the industry is evolving. The endpoints of today and for the foreseeable future, as I see it, are going to be a combination of hardware vendors, and UCaaS and VAS players. And I believe, again, the appliances running native services will be the next wave in the industry. And so maybe to take it a step even further about where the industry is going, I thought it would be interesting to touch a little bit about how machine learning and artificial intelligence is also going to have a huge impact on our endpoints moving forward. The chipsets that we're all banking on, the cameras that are going into these systems, just the machine learning industry itself is going to start to enable what I think, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago would be completely science fiction. We're going to be able to start deliver as features and capabilities on our devices from now moving forward. If I think of just some of the capabilities, these are things that I can think about. There's all sorts of things that I imagine you might have ideas. What's so exciting is I don't even know we know where we're going to end up. Like what in the next few years, by leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence, what a end user experience. It could be completely different from what we see today, and it's really exciting. I think we're just on the forefront of that. And so if I think of some of the capabilities that are in our devices today by leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence, we can start to do things like camera tracking and video production rules and bringing that television-like experience that you see at home when you're watching the news, bringing that to low-cost, easy devices. Go ahead, David.
Did anybody see the AV and the AM broadcast we did yesterday? Anybody wake up early on Sunday morning? Carl, Chris is in it too. Okay. We were actually demonstrating some of that live, and I love the devices, but I feel so foolish that I went to college to learn video production, and everything that I learned is now in this box that you could buy for less than $1,000, and it's zooming and it's panning and it's tilting and it's just amazing. So if you want, Tim Albright, AV Nation TV, is taking that live thing we did yesterday, and he's going to cut it together and make it available on YouTube. So if anybody who missed it, they can see it, and you just take a look. It's really amazing. And Chris and I were sitting there next to each other, and a very feverish Tom Berry was sitting in the back of the room who didn't want to be on camera, but his face was there and his eyes was there, and that camera saw him, and man, it looked like he was standing right in front of it. It was amazing. So I'll make sure we send a link out to people when you want to see it. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you. Thanks. But it's a perfect point, right? I mean, we're now starting to deliver these experiences on these devices that just would cost tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in order
for
to
college education.
Yeah. And we started to do this again down to under $1,000 type devices. So really moving the industry forward. That's just from camera tracking. We think of some of the things from a sound perspective to evolve the industry and remove noise from a noisy environment, right? Everyone has noise in their environment. So starting to leverage machine learning to understand what's going on.
Who is with us this morning? Show of hands. Okay. How many times did the car go by with a siren on? Okay, so if you're having a meeting in that room, you have to hear the siren. Mm-hmm. We're now working with technology that if you're not in the room, if you're listening on the far end, right, it's going to negatively remove the siren while leaving the microphones on. So we're talking about not as good as being there. We've passed as good as being there. Now we're talking about better than being there. And it's just stunning. Every time I look at it, I still think it's magic.
It's like magic. I mean, again, machine learning, artificial intelligence is going to completely change everything that we've been doing for 20 years in this industry. And again, you just hit on two examples that you're dealing with right now. Again, I know what we're working on in 2, 3, 4 years from now. And it's just going to completely evolve into just something, again, that's science fiction that we think of it today. And again, I think room sensors have a big place to play and what's going on and starting to understand what's actually going on in the environments. And so when you start to look at the flexibility and capabilities of these next generation endpoints, I think the analytics the potential around analytics for what we could deliver as a hardware manufacturer completely changes the game versus anything that's being done today. Again, I meet with customers all the time that tell me they spend they're about between $500 and $1,000 per room per sensor, just to see if someone's in the room or not. And, go ahead, yeah.
I'll change your thought, but
Yeah.
in the same area, we've got AI and this analytics. So from your insight, without disclosing too much, the challenge, in my opinion, over the last couple of years is how do you bring the individual identity into the space as seamlessly as possible, right? So that it's you can let the individuals in the space, that concept around the analytics or the AI potential blows away. So where are you seeing, if you could just kind of hint to us what you see as a manufacturer to be the frictionless way to get to individual identity? Or are you saying that still the boundaries are too great in the next 5 years we won't be there? Or are you going to bring to market something in the next year or so that will actually cross that boundary? Because once you open that door, we're off to the races.
Yeah.
But until you're doing that, you're dealing with two different environments. An environment of anonymity and individuality, and they're not meeting.
Yeah, so I don't think it's not something we're going to do on our own. Because for a variety of reasons. I expect that we're already starting to do some of that with some of the different ecosystem partners. I'll give an example. So Microsoft has proximity built into some of their devices. So if you're running, again, we're not shipping it yet, so no one would be able to, at least we're not shipping it yet, there's these new collaboration bars, Studio X's that we have that will run team software. And so Microsoft has the proximity software built into their device, into their application that we'll be able to take advantage of. So as a user walks into the room, I don't know that I'm fully answering your question, but hear me out. So I could walk in with my personal device and know that, my laptop will know that I'm in that particular room, and then I can connect here and everything syncs that way. So that's one thing we're doing. I think there's still a little bit of ways to go between saying, okay, I just joined where we are is I joined the meeting and we're all good. But if you and I walk together into that meeting, the system's not intelligent enough to know that we're all in it, right? That's still a little bit of ways to come, but it's coming. I mean, absolutely, it's coming. I mean, the building blocks to do that are here today. We probably need a little bit more evolution, but the power and the endpoints, we can do this. But again, I think it's a combination of, it's not something that we can deliver on. We could, but I don't think the biggest powerful way to do this would be for us to deliver it on our own. It would be more to how do we deliver this with Microsoft, with Zoom, with Cisco, with...
That's a great answer, because what you're saying is maybe we don't solve the problem the same way. Maybe the physical space and the analytics about the physical space, because they become ubiquitous, can be anywhere, become relatively minor compared to the analytics on the virtual space.
Correct.
The frequency, the rate, who's meeting when and where.
Well, Mark, this is a conversation that we've been having on the strategy team, and it's something I like to call the creepy factor, in that what can we do versus what do we want to do versus what culturally are we ready to do. Nice. So if we stick a big sensor up in the front of the room, and that sensor can do people count today, because everybody's doing that, and that's great. All right, we could do facial recognition, because that technology exists today. Do we want to? Is that a GDPR problem in Europe? Is that a security problem here? Okay, maybe we don't want to do that. Could we look at your face? I mean, some of the things that are up there, can we see if you're bored, or if you're paying attention to the meeting, or if you're happy? And if we could do that, do you want us to do that? Because are we now starting to get a little creepy and a little... So I don't think it's a technology problem. I think, as Sam says, we have all the building blocks now. We're playing with them back in the lab and in R&D. The question is, what do we do to put them out that society will be ready for? And I don't really even have a great answer to that, but that's what, the next 4 or 5 years we're going to all be looking at, and all the changes. I think as soon as I walk into a room, it should say, "Good morning, Dave," and it load my meetings. But not everybody wants to do that. So we were talking earlier this morning about the concept of an opt-in. How do I do a handprint or a thumbprint or wave my phone? Something that I've now initiated. I think that culturally we need to work that out before we work that out all technically. But if we're giving you a device in the room that's got those capabilities, and if you think about it, it's got those capabilities even if you're not in a call. It's a sensor. So maybe you're doing a call on one platform or another platform or another platform, but if you're not doing any calls, it's still telling you how many chairs are open versus used, and how often the meetings were there, and how interested people were. Now you're starting to get a lot of power out of that device in the room, even not for calling or collaboration. Yeah. So the answer is we don't know, and the technology is going to be here faster than the culture is ready for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt. but
No, no, I
it's the
love it. I
creepy
mean, because
factor.
I'm in. It's. I'm probably asked about facial recognition probably once a week, and depending on where you're coming from in the world, I'd say, because if you're in China, they ask me more than once a week. If I go over there, I mean, I'm asked. Not that I'm going there now, but I'm there often, and just every meeting is where are you with facial recognition? It's just assumed that you're going to be able to deliver that.
Who uses Facebook? Let me show of hands. Who does stuff on Facebook? Anybody post pictures to Facebook? Have you had to tag people in those pictures, or does Facebook do it for you automatically? It knows who your people are. A friend I didn't even know I had it knew was in there. So, yeah, I mean, it's all around us. It's the creepy factor. Zuckerberg's a perfect example. Sorry, Mark, but yeah.
Yeah, all good. Yeah. And so again, as we start to think of where this can go, and as I said, the list goes well beyond this as to what's possible. But doing things like counting the chairs, counting the people, how often is the room used, and how often is the room not used? And again, as David said, right, even if it's in a call or not in a call, are people happy? Are they bored? Are they sleeping? Does the garbage need to be emptied? Is it security? Is all the things there that should be there? By leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence with these devices in these rooms, the potential, the building blocks here are just amazing as to where we're going to go. Again, I believe it's going to feel like science fiction for us for the next few years. So again, hopefully this was helpful to all of you, right? As I've been in this industry for 20 years, and I'm seeing a huge shift and a huge evolution of what's happening within the industry. I talk to customers every single day, and I'm just seeing how excited they are for this move from generic devices, and Windows and Macs in the room, to appliances. I also see the workplace is significantly evolving. The expectations of the user bases are growing. The facility, sensors, artificial intelligence, machine learning, the design of the devices, analytics, they're all going to have a tremendous impact on our industry over the next 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years. And again, as I said it, and I'll say it again, the endpoints of the future are a combination of great hardware with services attached.
Do you think that those services are going to be endpoint manufacturer solutions, or do you think those are going to be extensions of something like Zoom or extensions of
So
something?
it's a great question, and I probably so the services I'm talking about there are UCaaS and like Unified Communications as a Service, Unified Communications as a Service, or Video as a Service. Those are the services I was
What I'm
referencing.
thinking about, of course, is all this AI and ML stuff you're talking about. And those things are great, sensors are there, hardware is there, but the software's going to drive it.
Yep.
So
Wouldn't it be cool if a hardware manufacturer married a cloud service,
Yeah,
give you
that
all
would be
those
really
analytics?
cool.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Easy, cowboy.
yeah.
We're only talking about what's available today, but yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. Again, I think it's to be, my opinion. I think it's still a bit early, right? It's still the capabilities that these devices could expose. I still think it's still a bit of the Wild West right now, and so I think you're going to see manufacturers like Poly are going to build our services that we can bring a whole set of data to you. Obviously, Microsoft, Cisco, they're all going to be like, here's a lot of data. I think that there's going to be third parties who are going to be like, hey, Poly is going to give you all the data, what's going on in the conference rooms, but some other analytics tool is going to be like, well, we're the master analytics tool that's going to give you everything that's going on within your organization. So I don't think that there's a one-size-fits-all for customers. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be, we're all going to come and, here's this great, all this great data, and in certain cases, again, we're going to go through the data lakes and go, here's the nuggets, right? And then there's going to be other cases, there's going to be some third parties who are going to go, here's the nuggets, and in other cases, it's going to be different services. Any other questions?
I got a question.
Yeah.
Your name, where you're from, please?
State University. Thank you very much. So, I built that over 400 rooms, about $50 million of AV technology, mostly done through facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And it was heavily dependent upon the architect and the AV consultant. See, this is being sponsored in part by Shen, and I love Shen. Where's that being communicated with the architects and the AV consultant? It's going to make it easier for me to make the case for the budget.
So, I mean, I think I must talk to you like at least a couple times a week at this point. So, I mean, a lot of this is being communicated to the
Yeah, I can respond.
Yeah,
a little
system
bit.
integrators.
Yeah, let me get a little clarification on your question. For example, and I was actually going to ask you guys about this, that when you have a product that crosses new boundaries, blue ocean, high demand, you have a product now that you can't get your hands on. I can't get you a prototype, for you to validate it's going to do what you expect it to do on your network for another 2 months. So the problem here is chasing back, the innovation cycle and manufacturing cycles, because to me, your buy-in comes from you try it, like it, and then now at the price point that they're at, sub 2K, the manufacturer is saying, really, if you buy it unknown and trust us, it'll work. That's more likely for you to get it. And I'm in a tough spot because there's still a little bit of money here to put out, but in the scale of things, and if you're deploying it a large amount, it may not be, but it is a risk. Does that answer your question?
A little bit. A little bit. I know from many of the manufacturers that I work with, some of them are in the room, are very in touch with the AV consultant business, whether it's Shen, Avtech, Hennessy, and Sexton. But not a lot of, on all the conferences I go to, that conversation of that broader community, on the AV community, I have not been privy to. And I think there's tremendous value there if a group or an organization can begin to pull that discussion back in. That includes all the facial recognition, all the sensors, because it impacts on facilities as well. I mean, the ability for the total cost of ownership is just tremendous.
Agreed.
Especially in a time of public higher education where budgets are flat or they're being cut, and you have 2 or 3 small liberal arts colleges closing almost every single week, according to the Higher Education Chronicle. This is a crossroads, a pivotal time, I think, for the industry.
Well, let me ask you something. So here is like as a client as well, and what we see is typically when clients are ready to start, they're going to invest because they're building a new building, right? So they say, let's look at how we're doing our technology. Now that we're spending X million of dollars, why don't we reevaluate what we're doing across the entire firm, right?
That's right.
The problem is that we're brought in that project and they've already done test fits. They already got a schedule committed to deliver, and it starts to box in. We're moving this way now to fit out this space. And if you want to do something in the enterprise and figure out, the larger picture of how we do analytics and how we do facial recognition, that's all great, but we don't have a budget for that, and you're going to have to do that on your own time. That's where this starts to be a problem. So we need to have clients more forward-thinking. The chief technology officer is really grabbing in upstream of that, seeing that they're going to be investing in products in large fit-outs the next year, and start that cycle earlier, get into the R&D cycles, and test and kick the tires and see what's really, what's the art of possible.
Fair enough. Thank you.
You're in IT or you're in facilities or
I
you're
got absorbed into IT in 1998. I started out in media services, and I've stayed in the industry. I was just telling this gentleman here. People ask me, how have I stayed in the AV industry for over 45 years? And besides having a personal relationship with the AV contractor, is having a personal relationship with the AV or with the manufacturers. The more AV consultants I know, the better. The more networking I do, the better. And that's one of the reasons why I come to these events.
How do you meet with your facility? Again, it's just I think for me, it's like a combination. Do you meet with your facilities team often? Do you meet?
We meet every 8 weeks.
Every 8 weeks. Is that enough? That doesn't seem like enough.
All IT, every critical part of IT, and all the design and construction folks. We meet every 8 weeks and go over all these things.
We kind
The
of
architect and the consultants are not in the room.
We kind of touched on this a little bit in the morning session today, and I don't mind saying it, and I don't mind anybody getting angry with me because I have pretty big shoulders. We're not in a good position in the AV industry. Our industry leadership, our industry association, we're talking about how great we are. Meanwhile, companies are falling apart and being absorbed, and the technology is changing, and we're not out there saying, guys, this is the world's changing, this is what you need to be doing. I would love to see us as an organization go out and say that, to say, look, The architect designing rooms, hiring the AV consultant who's putting the same technology in for the last 20 years, who's hiring the integrator who's putting the same technology in for the last 20 years, that model's broken. And the more we keep doing that, the more of us are going to go out of business. Why don't we get ahead of this and start thinking about where technology is going? Why don't we change the way we look at it? Because more of us are going to get absorbed into IT. And one of the jokes that I like to tell when I give presentations is there are two kind of people in the AV world: those that work in IT and those that don't realize they work in IT. We have to change, and the more of these events that we do, the more we can get the word out saying, look, we're all in this together. Let's figure out the new path, because it isn't the old path, because look at how many companies are merging and going out of business. So we're right there with you, and we're providing this information. Look at the manufacturers in this room that are participating. Look at the ones that are sponsoring. Look at the integrators and consultants that are sponsoring and involved. They're the ones that are saying, all right, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I want to be on top of this stuff. I want it to change. So I would say, really, talk to the people around here, because you're right. If we don't change, we're gonna be stuck in this bottleneck where the architects have pre-designed the room way before we've ever been involved, and it's not gonna get any better.
Dave, off of that, I think John had a great point, but I think he's trying to get across is that, you guys are large manufacturers, especially the hardware manufacturers. Software makes it very easy. I go 30-day trial, click a web download, it's at my door in 30 seconds.
Yep.
Hardware, you can't produce these, you have these, I'm always fighting the CIO press releases.
Yep.
And if you can't get me hardware in my hands, you're gonna miss that sale.
That's a fair point.
Camber used to be phenomenal at giving me hardware. Cisco used to be better at it. Now they're not as good. You guys used to be better at it.
Yeah, you're right.
Now you're not.
John, I'm gonna pay you for that segue.
I don't think there's a lot of end users. I was disappointed to see not as many end users this morning. It's really more on the manufacturers, on the integrator side. But I'm talking to you guys. I want to be able to have more hardware in my hands. So if you want those large sales, you want to be part of my project, be a partner. Bring the hardware and be ready, be ready to put it out there for 30 days.
You're 100% right, and that's two questions, and I'll answer them both. When we do these events in New York, we're 60 to 65, maybe even 70% industry people as opposed to end users, because it's hard to get people away from their desks. That's just the reality, and we're all family, so that's fine. But when it comes to hardware and putting hardware in users' hands and in consultants' hands, and in you can ask a couple of the people in this room. I don't see one of the consultants in the industry reached out to me that you're going to call a manufacturer, including ours, and you're going to say, can I have this demo? And what are we going to say? We're going to say, yeah, of course you can have the demo. Let's get it written down. We'll get you to our demo depot. We'll figure out when it's available. People call me. I said, I'll bring you the one from my house. When do you need it? Tomorrow, soon enough. The stuff's small. It's inexpensive. It's easier to get out there. And once we solve the manufacturing chain problems that unfortunately we're dealing with this pandemic, we're going to start to be able to show you some of the great kit that you're going to be able to see on the tour today. Inexpensive, easy to put in your hands, goes in 2 minutes, does all these things we've been talking about. I'll give you a piece of paper. You can sign to buy 10,000.
The problem I ran into is your timing was bad. You ran into procurement problems, but you already put the cat out of the bag. So all your CIOs, all your executives are seeing the briefings, but I can't show them anything. So they're like, oh, these guys are
Sean, that's the cat, right? I mean, if you want to have vision and a transparent conversation about what's going to happen, you are always going to be going, nice, I want this product now. When can you deliver it?
Yeah.
Right? So you're getting the advantage, because there's some companies that will really shorten that vision and give you only 6 months because they don't want to be in that spot of going, when are you going to deliver this thing? Even this manufacturer is on the hook to deliver the entire package of what they say they can deliver. Yeah. But that is a manufacturing cycle, and we have to respect some manufacturing cycle of what is your cycle there for your
9 months. That's
9 months.
Yeah, 9 months.
That's when we got to push and say, why 9 months, right? And maybe the advantage of the 9 months is it's all one manufacturer. I'm not hodgepodging off-the-shelf products. I own and can wrap it. I guarantee you reliability, which frankly I would take a month for reliability versus getting something that isn't. But I want a prototype in your hands.
Yes.
I want a prototype that solves a couple of the things that are really key. And then you get enticed, and then you're off to the races. It's not having anything, an absence of anything, that you start to lose time. That you can internally get the sale across to you. Say, folks, let's wait until the product's available. Let's not pull the trigger too soon. Yeah.
So is the question really, is the day of the integrator over? Because everything is so plug and play. You don't need these complex systems. You don't need these guys that are building 100 hours to build out a system, because you can just plug and play. Is it really that's what's gone in this industry? The integrator.
The integrators are there for large rooms,
And do we need large rooms?
not all is multi-purpose.
The day of the integrator is not over. The day that the integrator can come in and tell you that they can upsell you on a huddle room is over. So when an integrator comes into your space and says, oh, well, you can't install this thing off the shelf because you have to put in this sound system and control system that I have to program, and we have to run wires, we have to certify it, then you know they're lying and they're not going to be around for much longer. But if they come in and tell you, you know what, for these 50 rooms, you can buy this kit, I'll sell it to you, I'm not going to make you a lot of money, or you can buy it on whatever your site is. But for these other 10, don't put that thing in because you're never going to get a good experience. You need the extra horsepower and the expertise. So the industry is changing to where you need an honest integrator to come in and tell you, you need them for the things that you don't realize the off-the-shelf stuff you can't handle.
To complement that, I found, and I've been in this business for a while, it's Michael Barco. John, your community is so much more educated now than you were 20-some years ago when I got into this business. It used to be one of you being the evangelist for the company, but now there's a whole department of you guys, right? Whether it be the university or the corporations, and sometimes your staff is equally as good as the integrators that you're using, right? So I think if you look at the overall evolution of how that whole thing has been, you guys are very well educated. I think if you're doing the right job, the manufacturers, Paulie, Cram, the other guys here, we all want to have a direct relationship with you guys. We have to sell directly to you. We want to directly talk to you and find out what you want. We need your feedback. I think some of the confusion may come down to if you're getting some roadmap type of conversations. Now, the manufacturers need to be honest with you as to what the real delivery date's going to be in the timeline, right? And there's always going to be that shining star out there that you're going to want to get that's always going to be 6 or 12 months out. So you're going to have to weigh how you're going to have to do that, what features of the roadmap and everything else, right? But I think if you look at the overall change from my viewpoint, it's been just unbelievable the difference. Everyone's well more educated now.
I'm Mike Solowski. I work with a educational services agency in upstate New York, K-12 schools. I would agree that maybe in this room that's the case, but when we're in my marketplace, this stuff, Sam, you just presented, this is transformative stuff, and that's why I'm here and why we're starting to dabble in this stuff. This is transformative. This will blow their mind. They are nowhere close to being educated on the power of what this can do. So it's interesting to hear this conversation. Definitely with some of the clients and the companies that are here, you're really well connected into that and very well versed in what's going on. But when you start looking at the massive of different marketplaces, particularly the education marketplace, I think, John, that's where you're going. This stuff is so foreign to them. They're still about hanging projectors and worried about bulb life on those projectors. They're not even close to looking at this stuff. And I'm not sure how we overcome that.
Well, you're giving me the opportunity to give a commercial. Is that when we do the dinner tomorrow night, or any time you go to the website, look at the manufacturers and the integrators and the consultants that stepped up for this event and said, yeah, I want to be a part of that. And try and get them into your purchasing team and your procurement cycles. And these are the guys that really want to stay on the edge and do the right thing. And look at the logos that aren't there. Look at the people who said, no, I don't want to talk in an agnostic group of people and be able to share points and answer questions that are too tough. And maybe you shouldn't be doing business with them. So I support the people that support this kind of conversation and industry agnostic event moving forward, whether it's the one that I work for or any of them, including competitors, because we're all in here trying to learn and be part of it. So, pick your partners well.
Let me share an opinion. I've been in manufacturing for almost 35 years, and to your point, Mark, I think it's about setting proper expectations. The manufacturing of technology is not an overnight process. And so when we are sharing roadmap technologies and plans, maybe under NDA, maybe not, maybe we'll just come into your office and talk to you about what's coming. It has to be clear that these products aren't available for John's evaluation for the next month or two. Right? It could be
my problem
a plan.
was announcements were made, product was, the kickoff started.
Yeah,
And now you can't get it.
That's dangerous.
That
Once
is-
you misrepresent your
that's-
technology roadmap to be a deliverable that's right there, and it's not, then you've made a disappointment. So
Yeah.
I think everything needs to be in balance, and the communication needs to be honest and clear. And so to your point, I think that you just need to ask the right questions. Is it real? Is it coming? Is it reliable? Is it sustainable? Is it extensible? Is it scalable? All of those questions are important to have with that manufacturer, regardless of the manufacturer, to really get clarity on what it is you're looking at.
And they're often
That's
gonna
my
tell you
consensus.
the best that they know. They're not, not everybody up and down the sales organization knows if they're a manufacturing problem.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
it's track record.